Yes, you're audible.
Yes,
Thank you. So let's start for the day. So we will continue with the second demo for with respect to the Palo Alto itself, because yesterday we found that we could not cover completely the entire things which was as per the topology. So today we will do a lot of labs from the lab point of view. For those who have joined today as a new, let me just brief you out what we are doing. This is a session which is a part of a 5-in-1 firewall mastery. So we are going ahead with the Palo Alto first. So yesterday's class, we just had a discussion on the basis of what is a firewall, what is the difference between a router and a firewall, and then we went ahead with a small lab exercise where we had just gone through some Palo Alto tabs, the GUI tabs, that what all things we need to configure. So when we are going ahead today on day two, so what is my agenda for the day to start with is basically we will be understanding more in terms of the very small topology that I will show you how we can create it. Okay, so that is something, and what are basic configurations we need to start with, how to configure the policies and how do we verify whether the configuration works or not. That is what we will be able to check that. So whenever you take any firewall, guys, be it Palo Alto, be it ASA FTD or any other firewall. So normally the firewall will have many ports, the data ports. Okay, there are data ports that are involved, which is responsible for carrying the traffic from the client to the server or client to any other uh, network we want to visit. So there are data ports and there are management ports. So these are out of band ports, means you're on the device when you will go and see the device, physical device, or even with the virtual when we will work with, we will see that these ports are visible to us. So both the firewall can be both in terms of hardware as well as in the virtual form. Okay, so when you will talk about Palo Alto, they have different series of firewalls. Like we have it for router and switches. There are different models. Same way in firewall, we will have low end, mid end, high end, all those as per the customer requirements. We have different variants of the firewall. Like we have PA 220. This is a 200 series lower end model. We do have PA 3K. In 3K also there are many variants like 3110. Likewise, then you have PA 5K, 7K. These are the series in hardware, and their architectures are different. That is how it is like able to carry out a lot of other features. So it can be in the form of hardware, it can be in the form of virtual form. So all these things, what we are trying to say is we have these two ports, specifically the data ports and the management ports. So when you will start the first time, when you will get the image and you will try to configure the IP on the firewall and all, we will try to access the firewall via the management port. So let me show you this topology which we have and which we are going to see even in hands-on today. So here I have a client PC. If you see here, we have a client PC on this side. Let me take this. Okay, so we have a client PC. So this client PC, we are going to keep it without it will get the IP from the DHCP server. So this client computer is going to get an IP on this subnet. So the firewall is currently we are having a management port, the data ports, Ethernet 1/1 and 1/2. So when you get a firewall, how would you go ahead with the configuration for the very first time? So you will try to have a management PC and you will connect a cable on the management port of the firewall. So what you're going to do is you're going to set up an IP over here. So they will be in the same subnet. So whatever. So currently in this case, in my topology, the management PC which I have given an IP of 192.168.100.10/24. And the IP which I have configured on the firewall is in the same subnet, that is 192.168.100.1/20. So via the CLI, you will take the CLI access of the firewall and you will try to configure the IP. So after that, once you configure the IP, you will use this IP to access the GUI. So you'll directly go to the browser and try to put this IP so that you get the GUI access. And then you will enter all those passwords. So while setting up the IP itself, before you set up the IP on the firewall, you will be presented a page where you will be asked to enter the login and password, and the initial password, the login which you will be doing, the login will be admin as well as the password will be admin. The first time when you will just gain the access on the CLI. And then it will prompt you to change the password. Just like any other things, like when we go and set up any account, it comes up with some default password and thing, and then it gives you an option to set a new password. So that is the first thing, to be more precise. And then the second thing, when you will set all the passwords, then you are going to do the IP configuration. And that's it. That is the first initial step to be done on the firewall side. So the IP config, you will give it for the management IP. Whatever IP you will configure on the firewall, that will be basically the management IP. And then that IP, you will use it to access the GUI. Okay. And then you will go ahead and start connecting all the other connections. So this is a very, very simple basic topology where one side we have a client, the other side we have a server. So we just need to see what all configurations we need to go ahead first, so that we can see that whether the client should be allowed to access the traffic or the client should be denied to ping the server or access the page. All those things we are going to explore in today's session. And in brief, I will tell you the packet flow because that is something very important to be discussed. So let's see this topology in proper.
Sorry to interrupt you. So actually, are you showing some topology?
Currently, I am just showing you the diagram and then we are going to just get into the lab.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's get into the lab. Is this lab visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Thank you. So what we are going to do now is let's understand step by step what all things when we get the box, physical box, what should we go? So we have understood that we need to connect first one PC to our management port and do the basic IP configuration. And once that is done, we need to open our GUI thing. So this is the GUI which we are able to see. Is it all visible, guys? Okay, the Palo Alto GUI. So you can see here that I'm accessing this particular GUI with the help of, so I went on my PC. Currently, I'm accessing this particular firewall GUI from my management PC. So on my management PC, I can go to the browser and I can just try to put the IP which I have configured on the firewall. So here it is 192.168.100.1. Okay, so if you see here, so I'm in my management PC currently. So on my management PC, I'll go to the browser and I'll put the GUI IP, the management IP, that is 192.168.100.1. So once you are done with this first, you'll get a page open, and with the dashboard, yesterday we had seen that with the help of the dashboard, you will be able to see all your system related configuration, that what IP you have configured, what is the mask and everything. That is what you will be able to see inside the dashboard, all system configuration. So the first thing what you will come after doing this is you will have to come on the network side and try to set up the interfaces. Okay. Is my audio not, can you hear me, guys? There is some people who are just saying that
No,
your audio is okay.
very
Fine.
clear.
Thank you. So you will get access. So the first thing, guys, once you have set all these things, you'll get into the network tab. So we are starting the configuration on now on the data port. So your Ethernet 1/1 to 1/8 you have currently. You may have different number of ports based on the hardware. So you will just click on this first Ethernet 1/1. So currently in my topology, 1/1 is on the client side and 1/2 is on the server side. So I have gone to my Ethernet 1/1 and I have tried to set the IP on the Ethernet 1/1. This is the same interface which is going to act later as a DHCP server. So I'll click on this interface, and as soon as you will click on the interface, you will be asked to select what type of interface do you want. The interface type, yesterday as I told you, that my firewall can act as an L3 device. It can act also as an L2 device. So currently, I'm trying to consider, we will be covering up the types of interfaces in detail with some examples, that when should we choose layer 3 interface, when should we choose layer 2 interface. But normally, we will be majorly, most of the times, if you are planning to give an IP on that particular interface, you would need that to be configured as a layer 3 interface. Okay, what is an HA interface? High availability interface, that I can tell you later. If you know the concept of high availability, then we need some interfaces when we want to connect the two devices in HA. So we can consider that particular interface to be a part of high availability. High availability is a concept of redundancy, where we just want to have a backup for the firewall, because we just don't want one point of failure, that if one firewall fails, my entire network goes down. So we want that if one firewall fails, then we should have another standby firewall which can directly take over once the active firewall is not there. So we can have these two firewalls to communicate between each other. We can connect them with the help of a interface, so that they get to know whether the primary device is alive or not. Otherwise, it will not be able to understand if my primary device is up or it has gone down. So to communicate between them, like a keep alive messages, and there are a lot of other things which they exchange. So in that scenario, you may choose that as an HA interface. But when you will go up in a higher end models, you may find that there is a dedicated high availability interface. As of now, we are choosing the data interface only as a part of HA, because on lower end architecture, lower end models, we don't have that many number of interfaces. Okay, they are very small office kind of a box, which may just have limited number of ports. So with those ports, you need to handle the data traffic, you need to consider that as a part of HA interface also. Sometimes even you can consider those data ports, you can make them as to access the management network, you can connect one of the data ports to be on the management network based on the design. Okay, there has to be a dedicated management port and data ports, but as per the models, architectures, when you will go in the higher end model, you may find that they have a dedicated HA interface. You don't need to take up any of your data interfaces. Then layer 2, if you want to make this as a L2 switch, you want to make your firewall work as a switch, then we may configure this as a layer 2. So let's stick for now with layer 3. As time progresses, when we will start up our session full-fledged, we will be going through again with all the interfaces types and everything in detail, and we will create a topology based on those interface types. So currently I need to choose L3 itself. After that, when you have chosen L3, the next thing which comes is, currently we will not be configuring a net flow profile. What is net flow? In case you don't know, let me touch this later. It's a part of kind of a management profile, what we create here. Then we need to say that what are we going to assign this interface to which routing thing, because obviously we need to later perform some routing. So as of now, there is a default router configuration that is present on the firewall box. So you will just consider firstly that, okay, let's select the firewall route, virtual router to be default. If you want, you can add up your new configuration on routing side also. But let's say if we are not doing anything as of now, we will stick to the default. It's already there in your box. And then you will start configuring the security zone. So you'll come here, and if you have already configured it, means if you have created zones first, then it is good. If you have not created zones first, no problem. There is an option of a new zone here, because every interface of a firewall has to be a part of a zone. Now, what is a zone? A zone is a kind of, a logical separation that, okay, these many interfaces are on my this side of the network. Means you're trying to logically divide your network. Okay, logically trying to say that this entire interfaces or this zone is a part of like where I have kept all my servers, DHCP server, my company's DNS server, all these is a part of my this zone, which we name it as any name, DMZ zone, ABC zone, XYZ zone. You can name anything. Just logically, if you give the name, it makes sense for anybody to know and understand. So if you see currently I have created two zone inside and outside, but if you have not created anything first, there is an option of new zone. So you will select new zone and you will be given one pop-up. There will be one page which will come up where you will just enter the name of the zone. And the interface type is already selected as layer 3, that this layer 3 interface is a part of this zone. There are other details which you will be finding out later, which we will be using it when we want to explore the next generation firewall features like user identity, identification, application identification, and something also known as zone protection. So obviously there is so much of threat around, the DOS attack can happen. So we need to configure some profiles with all those basic thing that we should not be allowing ICMP flooding, TCP flooding, TCP SYN flooding, and what is the threshold to understand that this is an attack? Because that could be a genuine request coming up on your device on that interface. Somebody is trying to ping there. Okay, but you should be able to understand whether this is a genuine request coming up or is it a kind of somebody playing an attack, some DOS attack has happened on that particular zone. So this is a part of zone protection profile. Currently it is none, but when I will try to create a new zone protection, I can attach it to this zone so that when a threshold passes, it can just understand that there is some ICMP flooding attack or whatever attack, and it can simply try to drop those traffic or drop this packet. We can take several actions there. So currently there is nothing we are going on this side for now. We just need to give a name and simply say okay. So I'm not giving any name because I've already created one zone. You just need to give a name here. And once you have done that, you will select here. So let me come here. I'll simply come to the drop down and I will select inside because 1/1 is a part of my inside zone. Then comes the configuration of IPv4 and IPv6. You want to give it statically, select static option, go to add, and then simply give the IP, what you want. So adding, deleting is pretty simple. You can just go and give the static IP in this way. So here currently the IP which I have configured is 10.111/24. If you want this particular interface to get an IP dynamically, making this as a client, you can select as a DHCP client. If you want to enable SD-WAN here on this interface, you can enable the SD-WAN on this side. So simple IPv4 configuration, IPv6 configuration, SD-WAN configuration, you can simply do that. So currently we have just done with the IPv4 configuration. We're not attaching any SD-WAN profile. And then the advanced option here you will come. So in the advanced option, you will get to see all the link settings, the duplex mode, the speed. So everything normally we keep it as auto because on the other side, we don't know what type of interface. Normally it is in the auto, but it could be fast Ethernet, gigabit Ethernet, whatever. So we will select the link speed, the link mode and the state, everything to be auto. See, sometimes the issues could be simply with the physical connections and every time, all those things. They could be like when we have to start troubleshooting, we don't just, there could be different approach people can follow. But if you're going through the physical layer, data link layer, network layer, those from bottom to top, so you should ensure whether your link is up and running properly. And sometimes the speed, the mode can be a issue. And post that, you will be creating one management profile, guys. So here you can see that I have created a profile with the name allow, ping, and telnet. Now, what is this management profile, guys? So let me just drop down this and I will create a new management profile. So you don't need to create initially only. You can come on this page and just like you created a new zone, you simply come here and try to create a new management profile. Now, what is this? Basically, this is a part or where you're saying whether that interface, are you trying to allow that services on that particular interface or not? I mean, are you supporting ping on that interface? Can somebody ping on your Ethernet 1/1? Can somebody take SSH or Telnet access on that particular interface? So from the security point of view, definitely you will just give a limited restriction on what type of interface you allow, what services. So initially, currently, since we are now at the phase of learning, we may just try to, for troubleshooting point of view, let's say end to end, there is some issue, you're not able to reach out, there is some connectivity. So what you will try to do, you will try to see from the client side, are you able to reach on the inside interface of the firewall? Till there, is there any network problem? You can try to trace it. So for that purpose, we have just tried to allow the ping, and for remote access purpose, you can try to allow the telnet or the SSH. Okay, so that is completely on the administrator side who is going to decide on what interface are we going to allow these services. So as of now, I have allowed this particular, I created one profile named as allow ping. I've given the name as allow ping and telnet in the name. And I've just selected ping option from here. And I've selected the telnet option from here. And I've just said okay. Even here, you can also put down those IPs who should be allowed to do this activity. We don't want everyone should be able to get the access to ping that interface. We want only administrators to should be able to ping that thing. So their IPs, I can simply put and configure here that only these IPs are permitted to ping and permitted to take the remote access. So this is known as management profile. When you want to access that interface via ping or want to do some other services, you want to configure an SNMP that you want to take the poll, you want to do the polling on that interface, or you want to send the traps from that interface, then you can configure even the SNMP part on that interface. Even user ID. You want that, okay, this should be a part of user ID where anybody who is coming on that interface, their identification should be enabled. We want to know that Ethernet 1/1 user A, B, C, D, whenever they are coming, that they were logging, okay, their identification should be captured. So all these are some services which we can enable and we can permit the IPs who should be able to access all these things. So currently I've created only one profile and it is not mandatory that you need to create it. It's something which is optional. You can set the MTU, you can adjust the MSS because sometimes we need to adjust the MSS based on the kind of traffic. We know what is the minimum, what is the MTU, guys, that the network supports. Normal Ethernet MTU. It is there in front of you actually, the minimum and the maximum. Yes, we know what is an MTU, right? Silence means no or yes.
No, ma'am.
Okay, if you have learned basic networking, you would know that every network has the capacity to take the traffic. I cannot just carry 1 GB of file or 10 MB of file at one go. There is a capacity that the network or the Ethernet supports, and that capacity is 1500 bytes. The maximum MTU that I can have is 1500 bytes, and the minimum I can have is 576 bytes. So as per the MTU, I can also adjust the MSS. Okay, no worries if you don't know this. we will get into detail, because every tab, every point, everything we will be learning it in detail when we actually start the session. So only from the demo perspective, I've tried to keep it very minimal. We are not getting in very detailed thing. So we just configured the zone, we configured the IPv4, and we just allowed the management profile here that, okay, uh, this is suppose this interface is okay to allow to ping and do the telnet. So that is how the interface configuration you will do, and you will simply say okay. Okay, so here it is trying to give you the warning also. See that by attaching this interface management profile, you're potentially exposing the firewall's administrative interface to any party that can reach this interface. So management profile is something really very, very crucial. Crucial because you are trying to expose that thing that you are anybody can do the ICMP flooding there, because you have enabled ping over there. And I've not added any permitted IP that who should be allowed to ping. So that is what it is trying to say, that it will give you a warning. Would you still like to continue with this? And you can say yes. As of now, I'm saying yes because I know who is accessing this network. So simply click on yes, and you are done with the Ethernet 1/1 configuration. So when you will come out, you will see this as layer 3 interface. You have allowed ping, telnet. This is the management profile. The link state, you will not see green initially. It will be in red. It will be down. So once you will go and try to commit here, there's an option on this top right known as commit. Commit is similar to saving your configuration. I can simply in layman terms say that when you say commit, it means that, and until now I was just writing the configuration. Now I want this configuration to get saved in the saved, so that when I will run this, it should be able to execute it. So it's very crucial that as and when you start doing any configuration, you also try to say commit. Until and unless you don't commit, your configuration will not get into execution. Okay, it's in Cisco. If you say you are just trying to configure we say there the running configuration, you're trying to put it into the startup when you save. Okay, so it is very much similar to that. Instead of saying save, you're saying your commit. So please don't forget that once you do any configuration, you need to come and simply give it a commit. Okay. So then when you will the commit will completely, that when that particular task is completed, you may find that the link state would come up. So initially your link will be shown as down only. And then go on the same way that you go on Ethernet 1/2. Again, select the interface. Again, give an IPv4. So here you can see that I've given an IP 20.1.1.4. Select the zone. Now currently 1/2, if you see, it's a part of a outside zone. So let me just click on this. So on 1/2, you may see this, that it will show you the interface type. You can also give a comment on what kind of interface this is meant for. And same way you can select.
I like the laptop.
It is a very light laptop. It is very, first of all,
Somebody-
very light. Second thing
Which
is,
one?
People, can you just mute
No,
yourself?
no, it's not the Lenovo
then
because it's also not available.
which you have purchased?
i9,
Oh.
higher i9, then
Just a second.
1 terabyte. Same 14 core,
i9, but
Hello,
much?
hello.
4000.
Guys, can you just mute yourself? Yeah. So interface type, again, you will select as layer 3, the default zone. Currently, you'll take the default router. The security zone, you'll consider it as outside. Configure the IPv4. So here the IPv4 is 20.1.1.1, which I've considered as outside network. And again, I have allowed the management profile. So this is the first step, guys. So what we have learned is once you when you set the IP, that was the step number 1. Like go and set the IP through the CLI and then access that IP on the browser. You'll get the GUI access. Then go to the interface and start doing the interface configuration. Currently, 1/1 is inside and 1/2 is outside. And then you will try to come and simply say commit. Okay, I will be doing this commit later because I want to add up more configuration. So the Ethernet configuration is completed, guys. Okay, but the picture is yet not done because I told you that this firewall will also act as a DHCP server so that it can give the IPs to my inside network. All the clients who are in my inside network, they can get the IP from this DHCP server. So in the same page, in the network tab itself, when you will navigate in the left-hand side, you will find that there is a DHCP configuration. Okay, so you'll click on the DHCP server. Okay, and then you will find that you need to go and simply say add. There is a bottom, you will say that you will simply go and say add. And once you will go and say add, you will be asked to enter a lot of information, that which interface of this server you want to configure it as a DHCP server. Okay, so you'll give all the pool IP first, because we all know DHCP servers, you need to give the pool IPs, all the gateway information, DNS information, you can start trying to say that. So first give a pool of IP. So I've given the entire subnet. Let's select any IP from this subnet. The clients will get IP from 10.1.1.0 subnet. Ping IP before allocating, you can select this. If you know the entire DHCP server process, then you can keep this option enabled. And then you're going to go for reserved address. So this is kind of an excluded one, that if you want to put the addresses that should be excluded, that out of these subnet, 10 IPs needs to be excluded, then you can simply go and specify on this side. I have not specified anything for now. Then you will come into the options. This is important because our DHCP server provides 4 pieces of information to our client, the major 4 pieces of information. First thing is that it should be able to give an IP, for which I have configured the pool. Second, it should be able to give the subnet mask. Then it should be able to provide the gateway, that the client should know what is my gateway. The client should also know the DNS information, because if it wants to access any internet, then the DNS needs to be configured. So when you will click on the option side, you will have to get an option of putting the gateway. So currently my 1/1, which is 10.1.1, is going to be the gateway for all my LAN side network for all the clients. Then you're configuring the subnet mask, the primary DNS server, the secondary DNS server, and all other NTP server. If you want to this server to be an NTP also, so that all other devices can get synchronized as per this. You can also configure the NTP, SMTP. All this server information you can put up. So I have now given a very minimal configuration, that I have just said put the gateway, put the IP, put the mask, and the DNS server. So where I want this DHCP server to be enabled, that interface you need to select. Okay, so I have now selected 1/1. Based on your topology, you will select that interface, the one which wants to be acted as a DHCP server. And then you will simply say OK. So this is the third part of the configuration, guys. You need to remember the steps what we have done. Step number 1, IP configuration on the firewalls. Step number 2, interface configuration along with the zone configuration there. Step number 3, if you want all your inside networks to get an IP dynamically, then you need to configure a DHCP server information. Okay, this is what the third step we have completed. Okay, any doubt so far?
Ma'am, one doubt.
Yeah.
Ma'am, suppose a layer 3 switch in the network will provide work as a DHCP server. On those scenarios, what we have to do?
You want your L3 switch to act as a DHCP
Act
server.
as a DHCP server, because we have a different VLAN, because we are means in
Then,
my
then
organization.
Mhm.
My organization, I nearly work around VLAN, total VLAN is VLAN 50, total 50 VLANs I have worked in my organization.
That's
So
not
in
a
those
problem.
scenarios,
You can create VLANs first.
okay,
You can give all kind of VLAN configuration you can create the way you create on your normal switch. Okay. So
okay,
that option is still there. Okay. As we will be doing more lab, right, Manish? So we will be exploring even those possibilities.
Not an issue.
Yeah.
Not an issue.
Okay. So currently we have finished with the DHCP server configuration, guys. Now the next thing which comes is routing, because without that you just cannot do a lot of things. So let me please pay a lot of attention here in terms of the routing, because here is your virtual router. If you remember, on every interface where we had configured, there was an option of a virtual router and we selected all as default. Okay, all the interfaces we had put the routing configuration as default configuration. So you see that there is a default option already there. So some default configuration has come set up to you. You can go and edit here anything you want, or you want to create a new one, you can go and add a new one also. But let me just, I have got modified the default one itself. So what I have modified, let me just show you. So I'll click on the default. So here you'll get an option to see static routing, OSPF, and Palo Alto does not support EIGRP. A prime information to be understood. There is no EIGRP support on Palo Alto. Okay, it can support RIP, OSPF, BGP. These are the protocols and static by default. So these are the something which you should know, that EIGRP is not there in Palo. So you may find the interfaces, you may find the AD values. In case you know routing, what is AD values, one should know. In case not, no worries, we will see that. Then it supports equal cost multipath. If you are trying to configure OSPF, BGP, in that scenario, if you want to enable, if there are routes which have same cost, if you want to enable equal cost multipath, that option is there. So here is where complete routing configuration comes into picture. Okay. In our topology, we have done a very, very basic routing. How is that routing working and what routing we have to configure? Let me just explain you that, because that is something important to be understood. So if I show you the topology, the client is on 10 subnet, the server is on 30 subnet. I guess I've not mentioned here, but the server is on 30 subnet. Okay, because you see a router in between. So if you see in terms of that network, how many networks are there? The total, if I consider exclude the management network, if I just see from client to server, I see there are total 3 subnets. One is subnet number 10, 10.1.1.0. Then between firewall and the R1, there is one subnet, 20.1.1.0. And then there is another subnet which is 30. Because this R1 is going to act like your ISP router. In actual organization, when we will talk about in any enterprise environment, we will consider this R1 as our ISP router. Okay. So for the traffic from the client to server, the traffic needs to go from the client to server side. So my firewall should know that once I receive the traffic from this client, subnet 10, and it wants to reach this subnet 30, where should I forward this packet? So that configuration we are doing currently in the static manner. We can do OSPF, another one also, but I'm taking a very simple example of static configuration because everyone understands static routing. It's very simple. So what will be my route, guys? How would you set the routing over here? So the destination network is 30. Okay, the destination network is 30. This firewall 1/2 we have configured 20.1.1.1, and on the router end, this side is 20.1.1.10. Okay, if I write it here, so this is 20.1.1.1 and this is 20.1.1.10. 30.1.1.10. On this side, it is 30.1.1.1, and the server IP is 30.1.1.10. Okay, so I want you people to tell me the static route for this. What static route you will configure on this firewall? My client is on the subnet and wants to reach the server. So if you want to configure IP route in normal Cisco router, you write the IP route command followed by the destination network, right? Then the destination network has to be 30.1.1.0. Then you provide the subnet mask. And what is the next thing you provide? Anyone? It's very simple, right? What is the next thing you provide, guys?
Destination IP.
Destination.
Destination IP? Destination network you have provided, no? This is destination network. On firewall, you're going to configure that if somebody is trying to reach this destination network, this mask, what is the next thing we configure?
Next hop.
Next hop. Exactly, the next hop. So you can tell me what is the next hop here? What is the IP of the next hop?
1110. 20 router IP. 1110.
Perfect. So 20.1.1.10. This is our next hop. So this is something which we need to configure on the firewall. Because other than if you don't do this, obviously you won't be able to, if you're trying to set up a policy later to allow this traffic, you won't be able to see that because routing is not done. Okay, so this is the same logic. The logic does not change, guys. If you know networking, right, the logic does not change. Maybe the way of configuration may just here and there it would be different, but the concept still remains the same. Somebody has learned routing, it will not go in vain that it will become different in Palo or something. The routing concept still remains the same. Okay, so good. So this is something now which we need to configure on the routing side because default configuration will not have anything in. You need to go and edit that default, or you may add a new routing and you can configure it. So let's go into the firewall. So here I have to go on the static route. I'll go and add one. So here I've already added one. I'll just show you that. Okay. So if you see, you give a name to this static route. I've given into out. Destination network 30.1.1.0/24. This is my network. From where this particular network I can reach the Ethernet 1/2. And what is the IP? So basically, this is the next hop information I'm trying to give. That the next hop information is 20.1.1.10. And the AD value, I can go and change. If I have multiple routes, then I can decide what should be the AD value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. So the default value is 10 for static routing, it's just taking. But I can go and modify that also. So it's the same thing. The destination network, from where will this traffic go out? It will go out from 1/2. And if it has to go out from 1/2, what is the next hop? The next hop was 20.1.1.10. So simple static route we have defined. And you will simply say, okay. So destination network, from where the packet is going to go egress, it will go out. That interface you will specify and you'll give the next hop IP. I hope this is clear. Once you say okay, so you're done with the fourth step of your thing that you have enabled routing. Okay, so the routing concept is clear. But our firewall is supposed to act like a one who will control the traffic. A simple mechanism what the firewall do is controlling the traffic, whether to allow the traffic, deny the traffic, from what direction to what direction. I can go, and that is now the next step. Okay, so now we are on the fifth step, guys. I hope you are all trying to follow the step number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will again have a summary on it. But now we are on the fifth step where you need to enforce the policies, because without this is not going to act like a firewall. So As of now, we have just done the basic configuration like we do it on any network device. On any device, network device, you will go and do in the same way, configuring IP, configuring routing, and all those things. So now comes the policies part, guys, where I can see that I have a security policy, NAT policy, and other policies. So in this session, I will be showing you the configuration of two such policies. One is the security policy, and then also the NAT policy. We are trying to mimic a very much similar situation when what we do it in our normal enterprise network. Okay, so NATing. Are we all good with or aware of NATing?
Yes,
What is it?
transition from one IP to another IP.
Great. One IP to another IP. So at present, we know that why we want to do NATing, right? We have the concept of public and private IPs and all those things. So in this topology, you tell me the client wants to go and access the server which is on the outside network. So we are considering the part of the server is on internet. Okay, server is on internet side. So I want to enable the translation. I want to hide my client's identity. I don't want my client's IP to go out, or simply we can say that the client is on a private network. Okay, so NATing can be done on the firewall side here, as well as it can be done on the router side. We all know that the router supports NATing. So it is up to us to decide where do we want to put the NATing configuration. So because as I told you that this is our normal router, so you can also configure your NATing on the firewalls. So majorly when we classify NATing, the major classification of NATing is source NAT and destination NAT. Anyone who knows the difference between them? The source NAT and the destination NAT?
In
So
source
currently
net, when traffic will go towards internet, source will be changed. Like the source will be firewall itself IP when it goes to internet side, and then the destination net it's reverse. Like the traffic coming from internet side, when it go to inside, the source will be like a firewall itself IP rather than the internet public IP.
Okay. So destination NAT, somewhat you were not that very clear, but source NAT, yes, you are right. Source NAT. So currently my client, which is considered that it has got an IP from the pool that let's say 10.1.1.3. I'm just assuming that it has got this IP from the pool. We have configured this interface as a DHCP server, if you remember. So when it will come on the firewall, and here it will see whether you have configured any NAT policy. So you want to translate the IP or not, it will check. And if in case you want to translate it, it will ask whether you want to go for static NAT, dynamic NAT, and then it will ask you whether you want to do source NAT or destination NAT. Those things you all need to go and specify in that policy. Okay, whether you want to select the static dynamic NAT, or you want to go with along with that, whether you want to choose a source or a destination NAT. So here in this case, since the client is going and accessing the server which is on internet, we are considering the source NAT. Okay, so the source IP is going to be in this case 10.1.1.3, and the destination IP in this case when the traffic will originate will be 30.1.1.10, because as I told you that this IP is 30.1.1.10. So as it will come on the firewall, we want the source NAT to happen. And if I'm considering that I'm selecting PAT option, that is dynamic IP with port, which we consider it as a PAT option. So here what would happen is, for the sake of purpose, I'm not creating any pool of IPs for dynamic. I will select the IP which is configured on the 1/2 interface. That whatever people are going on this side, whatever networks are there, when you will go outside, take the IP of this interface, and port numbers, it will definitely keep changing, because that is what we say, dynamic IP plus port. That IP will be this, We are not configuring any pool. We are considering the IP of the interface, that when you go out from your inside to outside, take the IP of my outside interface. So currently the outside interface IP which I have configured is 20.1.1.1. So I'm trying to say that when you will go out, translate the source IP to 20.1.1.1 and the port number will definitely change. So when the traffic, we will need to see, we need to verify whether NAT happens or not. So currently we are configuring the NAT policy, guys. So we are trying to do NAT configuration where we are trying to specifically do source NAT because here we are trying, the client is trying to access the internet and we are trying to do dynamic IP with port. So this is something now we are trying to do it with the help of NAT policy. So let's come up and try to check that. So go to the NAT policy. So here you can see that you have the option. So every time you want to add any policy, anything, you see this option of adding here at the bottom. You simply select add. So once you select add, so here one I've already created. So I'll just go and show you this, how we have to do it. So once you click on this, so you will go and say add. I have already created one, so I'm just showing you that. Give a name, a sensible name. After that, yesterday somebody was asking me, does NAT 64 is supported or not? So you can go and see the NAT type. It has IPv4, IPv6. The NAT 64 also is supported in this case. Okay. Then comes the original packet. That what kind of thing you're trying to do. So the packet will arrive from my inside zone, going towards the outside zone. The destination interface is 1/2. Okay, means the traffic is going to move out of the 1/2. So this is something which you can also specify the source address, where it is going towards the destination. You can be very, very specific. More granularity you can add. Currently, we are putting up any. It is kind of a very general one. Okay, but we can define more specific here. So you created a zone. I mean, you mentioned the zone which you created here, the outside zone, and the destination interface from where the packet is going to move out.
If we have
And
two
then,
interfaces,
sorry,
if the destination is having two interfaces,
in case your destination is having two interfaces, then in that scenario, you may have to configure. See, the packet will move out from one interface as of now, but if you're supporting your kind of equal cost multipath kind of a routing or something in that manner, so then
PCM,
yes, in that scenario, then you may have to do some other additional configuration. Here you can't put on one more interface. Here you can select any interface as of now. Then okay.
Okay.
We'll come back to that when you will have multiple destination interfaces, how you can go ahead and do that. And then comes the translated packet, guys. So here you have an option to select source NAT and destination NAT, whether you want to translate destination or you want to translate source, and select the type of translation you want. Static IP, dynamic IP with port, which we consider it as PAT. Okay. So I have selected dynamic IP and port. Then I will select which particular interface. So the interface which I have selected is 1/2. That whatever interface the traffic when it will pass through, it will go via 1/2's IP, which is 20.1.1. So here I'm translating the source NAT that it should take the IP that is configured. This will come automatically. Here that IP you don't have to configure. If you have selected the type as address type as interface, you can also select translation. If you're creating a pool, then you will use this translated ones. But now I'm selecting the interface that I want all of them to be mapped to my outgoing interface, which is generally the case. So you will simply select the interface address, you will select the interface type, and it will automatically take the IP, whatever IP is configured on that interface. So the type of NAT and the translation type, you can go and select in this. And original packet, from where it is originating, where it is moving from, all these things you can configure it on this side. And then your NAT is configured. You can simply say, okay. So NAT policy definitely would be there. So we are just considering what all things will be there in our simple topology when anybody wants to start, what all configuration he needs to go ahead with. So now we are done with the NAT policy. Now comes the most important thing, guys, that is your security policy. Because this is what the firewall is supposed to pay a lot of attention to. So here comes the security policy where you will get a lot of options to decide. So yesterday we said that by default, two policies will be inbuilt there without you should be, whenever you start your Palo lab, your two policies will be there by default, intrazone and interzone. You cannot just move it anywhere. It is marked in yellow shade. It will be there by default at the end of any policies you create will be always at the top of this default policies. These are known as default policies. So intrazone by default allowed, interzone by default denied. Okay. Yesterday I had shown you this. When you scroll towards the right side, the action you can see that by default you are allowing intra and you are denying interzone. Okay. And any policy I go and add here will be always placed above the default policy. So give a name. Okay. Give a name. Then you have this type to select whether you want to have this intrazone, interzone, or universal. There is meaning to all of this. Okay. Consider the universal for now. Then simply you can give a description if you want to give it. Go towards the source side. Select the source zone from where the traffic will originate. If you don't know the IP, keep it as any, or you can give the IP. Source zone, source. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you. So interzone means it's internal and intrazone means external. Like
no, intra and inter. Go with the word. If
okay,
you have created two zones, right? Inside and outside. If any traffic is going from inside to outside or outside to inside, this will be considered inter. Okay, inter. Intra means within. If anything comes from inside to inside only, you have two PCs inside your network. Okay, one connected on 1/1 currently, and let's say there is one more interface which is also a part of inside zone, because your multiple interfaces can be a part of the same zone also. Right? Let's say out of the eight interfaces, you decided 4 interfaces, 1/1, 1/2, 1/3, 1/4. All these things you can put in one zone. Okay, and whatever devices are connected on those interfaces, when they will try to communicate with each other, that will be considered as the traffic moving within the zone, that is intra. So the word itself is self-explanatory, like intra means within the zone, inter means between the zones. So in simple words, if I have to say in this way, like you have created zone A and zone B. Okay, these two zones, and there could be multiple interfaces. You have assigned the interfaces on this zone. If somebody is moving from A to A, B to B, this will be considered as intrazone. So you have a firewall with multiple interfaces, 1/1, 1/2, 1/3. They are all a part of, let's say, zone A. So on 1/1, you might have one network A. On 1/2, you may have network B. On 1/3, you may have network C. So if any traffic from network A to C is moving, so this will be considered as a part of intrazone because it's in the same zone. Right? Let's say there is another interface 1/4 here, which is a part of zone B. So if network A is moving to, let's say this is network T. So if network A is moving to D, it's considered to be a part of different zones because these all were part of zone A and this was a part of zone B. So A to B, B to A will be considered as interzone. Is this
Thank you.
clear? Okay. So because
Yeah.
see, when we are saying intra and inter, why we are saying intra is default allowed?
Because it's within the
Intra
zone.
within the zone. You don't need to you can do monitor. You can still monitor and put some restrictions if you want some particular traffic to move. You don't want network A to reach network C within the zone. That means you need to then define your own policy. But if you don't define anything, it is considered that when you are talking within the community, everything is safe. Nobody is coming from out. You're in your own premises. Everything is safe. So by default, intra is allowed by default, and by default, inter will be denied. That nobody will be allowed to go from A to B or B to A by default. They will be denied. So anything you want to define explicitly, go and define. Okay. Even in intra also, you want to deny somebody because implicitly, currently, you can see here it is allowed. But you want that no, somebody should not be allowed within my zone also, I'm restricting somebody. Then define the policy for it. As much as granularity you can give it to your policy, you can define the direction of the traffic and whatever action you want to do with the traffic. Okay. Currently I've put up so you will put up the source name and all those things. Then coming to the source destination, same thing, you will go and put whatever destination zone you have. You can select any if you want, or you can specify if you say any, right, it makes no sense. Any, somebody, I have seen people just putting up policies with zones, any zone, any destination zone, any source zone, and allowed. Then there is no use of a firewall. Why you need a firewall if you want anyone from anybody to go and access your network? So just be very, very, it sounds very silly that when you put any everywhere, then you don't need a firewall. The job of a firewall is to go and monitor, see whom to give the permission and whom not to give the permission. So don't put any every time. Go and specify the zones, go and specify the addresses. Then only that firewall you are making use of. Coming to the application. So specify the applications you want. Let's say you want to, it will give you all the list. You want to allow somebody to go and use, if any traffic from source zone to destination is going with the Gmail application, then just give that application. So here you're going more specific that, okay, inside to outside I'm allowing, but only if this application traffic is going. So here more granularity you can add here by specifying the applications. Okay. So that is a part of, so if you don't want anything, you just want to keep this as any traffic you want to allow, okay, allow that, no worries. Coming to the service and URL category. Now this is really important when you talk about the service and URL category. By default, you see that HTTP and HTTPS services are there. You can add up any other service also. But one thing which is important to understand here is there is option of application default and any. Application default is the one whereby we know that, okay, HTTP services are generally running on port number 80. So it will take the default. If you say application default means if you have designed your website hosted on a different port number, then it will not work because you have selected application default. So application default means it will take all the standard port numbers. Okay, that HTTP is on 80, HTTPS is 443, SMTP is 25. So those traffic with default port numbers. If you select application default. Okay. If you say any, so anyone, any particular port number is okay. That is not a problem. And there is also an option of URL category here. So here you can go and put up two types of category you have. You have the custom defined, you have the predefined. So predefined, Palo Alto has already created for you that you want to block all the entertainment websites. Simply select entertainment option what you have. You want to block all the traffic from the category of news, from the category of sports, from the category of simple infotainment, etc. So there are some predefined categories that are already, mentioned here. Or if you want to have a custom one would be simply like you just want that I want to access YouTube, But on the YouTube, I just don't want anybody to access a specific link, very much specific. You don't want to block the entire application of YouTube, but you just want to block a specific URL. That becomes a custom category. But if from the company's perspective, it will try to block specific to the category. So you don't need to take, lot of headache, because your firewall is going and trying to search. There is a mechanism, because there are so many websites that are getting created every day. You don't need to track whether this category is belonging to finance. And in my company, I have denied all the financial websites. So if any new finance website comes, then how would I know? Palo Alto has their mechanism to understand and take that particular website into picture and add it into their database. So when you can go and define the predefined, you can choose the predefined URL categories, or you can define your custom ones. So that option you have. And then comes the most important, the last, that is the action tab. So here, there are a lot of actions. You can simply say allow, you can deny, you can reset. You want to reset on the client side, you want to reset on the server side, or you want to reset both the server and client. We all know what is the reset option. TCP reset flag, everyone might be aware of. When you want to deny a connection, you can simply send a reset. It is not mandatory that the server always have to complete the TCP handshake. I sent a SYN, but the server is not ready to communicate. It can send me a reset flag. So you may see that the connection is not, the connection has got reset. You sometimes see that in your browsers when you access some websites. Sometimes when the server is not down or something like that, you can simply see that connection is reset. Or you can simply drop. So these are some actions which you can select. And there's something very special in the Palo Alto thing is you can also select the profiles which you have. Means you can attach some profiles. You want to have a deeper inspection in the traffic. You want to go and check for antivirus. You want to see whether you can create different profiles and you can apply here. Okay, antivirus profile you have, vulnerability profile you have, URL filtering profile you have. We will be exploring this again, because this is all the concept of next generation firewall, guys. When we talk about that, how is next generation firewall different from your normal firewall? It has more capabilities to identify the application, more understanding about the malware, how to detect the malware, and more understanding about identification, etc. So here you can even attach. So when you say that you're implementing next generation firewall, you can actually attach these profiles on your security policy. So these things will be then taken care of. Okay. And then you have logging. You want to log all your traffic. Okay. Because for monitoring purpose, audit purpose, you need this. So you can simply log it, and you can forward this log also to your some servers which you have created. You may have a syslog server or any other servers. You can also forward that logs and keep it for your things. And there are other things like quality of service marking and all those things which we can see later. But this tab is all about actions, logging, attaching the profile for more deeper inspection of your packet. And then you will simply go and say, okay. So this is how you try to create the policies. Any doubt here? I know there will be a lot of questions. What is log at session start, log at session end? This tab needs entire 2 to 3 hours of a session to understand each and every action, each and every profile. So it's something which is really interesting, but from the demo perspective, I'm keeping it really minimal so that you know the basics. Okay, we can't just jump into all of this at this moment. So you create a security policy and then you say, okay. And once you're done with all of this, you need to understand, you need to go and simply say commit. So you can review your commit, whatever changes you have, you can preview it, you can validate it. This is again a different set of a different topic itself by its own. That what is commit, how does it works, how does it save your configuration, running configuration? Can I load the configuration from outside, backup, import, all those things we have. So again, so you will simply go and simply say commit, and then it will start to show you if any errors are there. It will show you those errors, validation errors and all. And then this percentage, when it comes up to 100%, it means your configuration is now completely written, and then you can start verifying whether those policies are getting executed properly or not. Because this is another part of the picture where you've configured now, you have saved it, now verify it, whether things are working as per the configuration. So let it complete 100%. Then we can start to ping from the client end and check whether the traffic is allowed, because currently the action what I have set is allowed. We'll try to ping and see the action is allowed, and then we will try to verify where is this, like we need to verify whether the policies are getting executed or not. Net policy, security policy, the session information, because yesterday we discussed that the firewalls are stateful firewalls. So where is it keeping those stateful information, the session table information? So all these things we can go and check. So currently it is 98%. So once the 100% completion happens here, you can also see in the task. If you can close this, you don't need to, you can work on parallelly with other configurations if you want. And there is in the bottom, you can see the task. So in the task, you can always come and check whether the completion has happened or not. It is not necessary you open the tab always and see whether completing things have happened or not. So if I go to my client side, I open the CMD prompt. First, let me show you the IP, what it has got dynamically. You can see that it is 10.1.1.3. The mask is 24 and the gateway is 10.1.1.1. So this it has got dynamically, guys. Okay. You can go and check it in your network settings as well. That if you open the network setting, you will be able to find that if I get into the Ethernet and the properties, that this I have kept it as DHCP, the IPv4 and the properties. So you may find that obtain the IP address automatically. So your client is getting an IP dynamically. Okay. Even from the other option you could have checked, but I have shown it from you. If you do IP configuration all, you may find all the other details. The default gateway is 1.1, server is 110.1.1. The timeline for what it has got, release time. So I believe now the configuration commit might have completed. Go in the task. You can see that the process, the status is completed. So now we will simply, let me show you now. Currently, since these policies have executed like so many times, you can see just that the hit count was 1471. Okay. So once I execute this traffic, okay, when I will try to ping from the client side, this hit count will tell me whether the policy is getting executed or not, as well as we will be trying to monitor it via logs, the traffic logs, that whether the traffic is passing it or not. So the hit count is always a better idea to know whether the policy got executed or not. So here currently the in-to-out policy which I have is 1471 for security, and for NAT policy also there is a hit count, guys. We can verify from there also. So here if you go and just go towards the right side, so currently you can see the hit count is somewhere around 928. Okay, so we should be seeing this to be increased, and the last hit was yesterday's time. You can see this. So I'll just go here in towards the client and we'll try to ping 30.1.1.10, and let's put a count of 100. Okay, and just hit enter. So firstly, you get an answer that you're getting a reply, means your traffic is, your ICMP request and reply is coming up properly. Then you can come towards this and you can try to refresh this. You have seen the refresh button. So 928, at least we should see some increment. So you can see 945 now because the traffic is going up. So as more you will refresh it, you will be able to see the hit count getting increased. So 9:45 it was, then 9:56. That means NAT is happening. Okay, the netting is taking into picture. And even the security policies for somewhere in 1400 or something. So even that count we will be able to see that the policy is getting executed. So the action was allowed and the hit count is 1515. That means it was somewhere in 1400 when we started. Now you can see that. And here again you can refresh and see. So 1515. Okay. I believe I had sent only 100 count. So this is one of the way to ensure the policy's execution is happening. When was the first hit? So now you can see 1534, the last hit and the first hit. So this is okay. But now I want to go and check in terms of the session table. That what is the session table information it has kept. So I have to come see whenever you want to see any logs, anything. Policies we know now, policy tabs have all policies. Network tab has all network related information. Okay. Monitor is something which is important for us to go and verify all the logs what we want to see. Okay. And especially, I will show you the session browser here. There's an option of session browser which gives you a detailed information about it. So when you will click on the session browser, you'll get to see a lot of information coming up. Let me just plug in my cable this. Wait a minute. Yeah. So you can just expand this. Okay. Or else let me refresh it once again. Okay, let me initiate the traffic for you. So you can just expand this. You'll get more information. Like firstly, you get this information of session ID. Okay. And here you will see flow 1 and flow 2. Yesterday we discussed the firewalls are stateful. That means it keeps a track of all the sessions in and out via the tuple. The tuple information means the source IP, destination IP, source zone, port numbers, all those things. So you can see here the zone is inside and the direction is C2S. C2S means client to site, client to server. It automatically creates this flow. So C2S is client to server. The zone is inside. The source IP is 10.1.1.3. The destination is 30.1.1.10. The port number is from 1 to some random port 1035. And the state is active. Okay. And the type is flow. And the mirror image, you can see it on the flow 2, that is server to client. It automatically creates it. It knows that if client to server, this is the tuple, source IP, destination IP, source port, then I'm expecting the server side when it will respond, the source direction will change. It is coming from outside. It is having the source IP as 30.1.1.10, destination is 20.1.1, from port is so and so. So this is automatically what the firewall knows. That is what it makes it as a stateful firewall. Okay, so client to server flow, once it knows what will be the server to client flow that will come. And there are a lot of other information you can see on the detail side. Like what is the timeout for this ICMP traffic? For 30 seconds, the ICMP traffic will be could be kept in my session information, the session table. Then you can see the application is ping. It has identified that this is a ping traffic. The protocol number is 1. For ICMP, we know that the protocol is 1. We know for all the different protocols what is the protocol number. Like for TCP, we have 6. For UDP, it is 17. Then you can see whether the NAT policy is applied. Source NAT is applied. You can see that it is true. The policy name for security is into out. And the rest of the things we have not just mentioned. So it is considering that it is false. There is no such thing. Quality of service, you can see that it is marked as 4. The class is 4. And this is how Is the session in HA? No, currently we have not configured any high availability thing. So this is all the session information. And if you want to see more in understanding the same thing, you can go and see the session ID is 1057. So you can go into the CLI and you can get more information. We have not explored the CLI aspect as of now, but in CLI also we can go and see a lot of information related to the session. What is the active sessions happening in my thing, and what is the translate packet? Let me just see if we can open the CLI from here. So I'll click on this. So here is the CLI part. So I'll just log in the CLI with the same credentials that you have created for your for your GUI. So once you get your CLI access, you can see show session details or show session all. So currently it is saying there is no active session because maybe there is no traffic passing. So the timing is just 30 seconds, right guys? That also we can change. So let me just go towards the client again and start to create a traffic here. Come towards here and I can write show session all. So when you will see here, so you can again see the same thing, that this is the session ID 1154, the first one. The state is active and the source IP is 10.1.1.3. The zone is inside. And you can also see what it is getting translated also, that the source IP is getting translated to 20.1.1. And the destination is 30.1.1.10. And there is no destination translation that is happening. So with the help of CLI also, there are a lot of commands to verify and check. When it comes to troubleshooting, these all commands helps us. Like somebody comes and tells me I don't see any traffic coming up, and traffic logs is another one. Currently, you may not see the traffic logs because there's some kind of an issue happening on my VM, on the VM side. But the simplest way to go and see whether your particular traffic policy, whether security policy or NAT policy is getting executed or not, is to come on this page, that is traffic log. This is the first thing I will do. Once I have configured everything and I want to verify whether the thing is true or not, I can simply say come into the traffic log first. That is the first step. Then I will go and see the session browser, which you saw here, whether the session information is recorded or not. Even if I don't see this, then I will start taking the packet capture. Means there is a way of troubleshooting things. I'll also go into the CLI and try to run some commands and verify. Okay, so when we went on this thing, right? So let's say this is 1154. So I can go and see this particular session in detail also, 1154. So same thing, whatever you saw on the GUI, the C2S flow, the S2C flow, exactly the same thing. Okay, but instead of coming to the CLI, I first showed you on the GUI that how can you see the session information, the state table, like from where the packet ingress interface was 1/1. It will give you some more details. The egress information is 1/2, and what is the policy which got executed into out? Is the layer 7 processing enabled? Yes, true. What all these things you can see. What are the number of bytes in C2S, S2C? All these things in detail you can see. This helps in troubleshooting. Okay, so majorly first is to always explore the GUI first. Because this is the beautiful thing in Palo, that most of the things you can start first exploring from the GUI perspective, and then slowly, gradually, for the same things what you're doing on the GUI, you can go and also have an equivalent on the CLI. Okay, so traffic logs is the first thing. Browser information you can then check. Then you can also take the packet captures. So maybe once we will start the session in full-fledged, I will be explaining you how to take the packet captures as well. Okay, there is a process of taking the packet captures, and you will see these files can get created, and it will you can download it and then try to merge and check, because it will create separate files for transmission, for receiving whatever firewall is receiving the packet. It will create a file for that. Whatever it is transmitting, it will create one PCAP for that. Whatever it is dropping the traffic, it will create one PCAP for that. So when you want to see the transmit and receive together, you need to download and merge together. Okay, so any doubts here, guys, so far? I mean, this is how the very basic lab which we have done. So if you all remember the steps, what were the steps? If you can just recall, what all things we did. What was the step 1? We have created a very simple topology, guys, but we will be building a very bigger topologies as well. Let me show you one if I have here. We are still upgrading it, making it more complex, but we are going to have a very complex topologies which we will be creating on the go. And I didn't show you this because it will simply look very complicated and yet to be done. Many things we are adding up here right now, like the VPN configuration and all those things, the routing configuration. So very complex topologies we will be building up, and we will be trying to understand things in detail. Just for the understanding demonstration point of view, we had started with a very simple topology. So any doubt, guys? Was it like something which you people could understand in today's session? So just a small recap. We just know that we first need to connect all the management port, management PC, and configure the management IP on the firewall. Then the next step is create the zones. If you don't create the zones, that's fine. You in the interface also, interface configuration, you can create the zones. We understood the management profile concept, where we saw that which services we can allow on that interface. Ping was allowed, SSH was allowed. So management profile is about that. Then we did the DHCP server configuration for our inside network. So DHCP server configuration we completed. Then we did static routing on the virtual router. And after that, we configured the NAT policies, specifically the source NAT. And then we had created security policies. We saw all the tabs of the security policies. And from the verification point of view, I told you that you need to get into the monitor tab where you will see all the logs. So the traffic logs is the first, which we will go and see. Then the session browser, which will give you all the session table information. Then you can also go on the CLI side to view the session details, packet captures, and many more others. So this was something which we covered in very brief today. It was a brief side, not something in detail. I hope you could follow many things out of it. That was not something very complex. So I'm ready to take any questions if you have. Was it informative?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so I will hand over to Sajid if you're here. Sajid, can you hear me? You're not audible, Sajid. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, now I can. Yes, Sajid. I can hear you now.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can take up.
Yeah, I'll
Alright.
be taking over here.
Okay. Thank you so much, guys. See you soon.
Hello, everyone. So, guys, whoever are enrolled and they can drop off from this meeting. So this is basically regarding to the admission point of view. So we'll be sharing the details and regarding offerings and all. So those who have enrolled, so they can drop off, and if they want to stay, they can stay here. Okay. So Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. Sure. So basically here I'm giving you all the details regarding the course enrollment, course details, what all will be the materials which we are going to provide you. So basically let me start with our first slide. So here we'll be going to give you details regarding the course content and all. So what will be the timings and what all we are going to cover. So you'll be getting all the details here. Okay. So basically here in this firewall mastery combo, totally we are going to cover 5-in-1 4 firewalls and one F5 LTM load balancer we are going to cover here in this course syllabus and class schedules. So basically as you just attended the demo from our trainer Sangeetha, so she will be covering Palo Alto. In Palo Alto we're going to cover PCNSA, PCNSE and Panorama. So from basic to expert level we are going to give a training here. So the next will be the Fortigate NSE4 plus NSE7 training will be there. So basically we are going to cover NSE4 paper and NSE7 paper. So both will be covered here in this Fortigate batch. Okay. So the next will be the Cisco ASA FTD module will be there. Here we are going to cover Cisco ASA, then Firepower, then FMC will be there. So overall from basic to expert level also we are going to cover here. So there next will be the checkpoint. So here also we are going to cover from basic to expert level. Then next will be the F5 LTM load balancer. Okay. So these all 5 modules which we are going to cover here. So in this firewall mastery. Okay. Here you can see the class schedules. So this will be going to be a weekend batch, Saturday, Sunday from 8 p.m. IST to 10 p.m. IST. Sorry, 1 second. So this was slight change. The timings will be 8:30 a.m. IST to 10:30 a.m. IST. Okay. On weekend, the timings are 8:30 a.m. IST to 10:30 a.m. IST. Okay. And this will be on Saturday and Sunday. Can you hear me, guys? I'm audible clearly.
Yes.
Anyone confirm? Yeah. So the course duration will be the 5 to 6 months course duration will be there for overall to cover all 5 modules. And the next module and then next slide will be for course enrollment and access details. What all materials and accesses we are going to provide you. So here I'm giving you details regarding that one. So access we are providing. So you will be getting the recording access for lifetime. Let's say like what which classes you will be attending, right? So in live class and instructor led training by the trainer, so that recordings you are getting on the web portal, so that in future if you want to go through the videos, if you want to practice something, in case if you are preparing for some interviews, anything it may be, you can watch it from there, and that will remain with you for lifetime access. Okay. And secondly, we'll be providing you the remote lab access for 24/7 unlimited. Whenever you want, you can access the labs. For each module of the firewalls, we are providing 3 months of lab access. So let's say for Palo Alto, you will get the 3 months of lab access. For Fortigate, 3 months lab access, you will get it. And for Checkpoint, you will get the 3 months lab access. And for Cisco ASA FTD, you will get the 3 months lab access. And for F5 LTM load balancer, you will also get the 3 months of lab access for 24/7 unlimited. Whenever you want, you can access the labs. and we'll be providing you the dedicated workbooks, PPTs, PDFs, like step-by-step lab manuals, and you can download that materials, and all the each facilities will be providing you. So any helps or anything it may be, so we'll be there to help you out. So if you have the good configuration of your system, then we will assist you to setting up your home lab on your personal laptop. Let's say you have the good configuration of your system, then you just need to raise a ticket on our support DL saying that I have so and so configuration of my laptop. So can you please let me know how can I do the setup on a laptop? So accordingly our team will connect with you and we will share you the details, and you can download some downloadable files and all. So that time one of our team member will connect with you, and he will do the setup on your personal laptop, and that will also remains with you for lifetime access. Whenever you want, you can access that labs. That will remains with you for lifetime, and the recording access will also remains with you for lifetime. Two big things. And we'll be providing you the 24/7 backend support from our network journey team. Like if you are facing any issues, any queries regarding to the course, regarding to the portal, or regarding to the labs, anything it may be, you just need to raise a ticket on our support DL. One of our team member will connect with you and we will resolve your issues accordingly in meantime. Okay, so these are all accesses which we are going to provide you. If you have any doubts, you can just raise a ticket on our support DL. The support DL email will be support@networkjourney.com.